Excellent. Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa. I will open today's community board meeting for the Waimairi Fendalton-Waimairi-Harewood Community Board for Monday, the 15th of August. So to start with item 1, actually, before I'll come to this point here. So for item 1, we have apologies. Now we do have an apology for lateness from David Cartwright. Could I please have a oh, thank you, Mike. I'm going to Suresh to second. And while we all those in favour say aye. 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 Any against? No, carried. And I just want to acknowledge that we have some councillors zooming in. So we have Councillor Sam McDonald and also Councillor James Goff. So we do see you on the Zoom. And just similar to last time, when we go through moving an item, just so we don't get delayed, I'm just going to pause what will feel like an awkward length of time, just to make sure that we capture the votes of those that are streaming in. Yes. So moving on to item number 2, this is declarations of interest. So I'm just raising this now. If any elected members have any declarations of interest within the agenda? No? No? Great. Moving on to item number 3. This is confirmation of the previous minutes. So we have 2 sets of minutes to confirm. One is the minutes that happened at our last meeting. And should we do these 2 separately? No? Right. And the other is to confirm the previous minutes that we had in PX on the 11th of July. So if I could have a mover for that. Thank you, Linda. And a seconder. Thank you, Aaron. All those in favour say aye. 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 Any against? No, carried. Great. Now moving on to item number 4, this is public forum. So I would like to welcome to the table the New Generation Church. So I believe we have a few guests today speaking on this matter. If you would like to come and take a seat, please feel free to bring some of the chairs as well if you would all like to come up. And with this public forum, this is a 5-minute forum, and that 5 minutes includes questions. We aren't in a position as a board to make any decisions today, but we are active listeners. So when you're ready, we will start the clock, and we would love to hear what you have to say. And please feel free to introduce yourselves as well, because
My name is Eduardo. I'm the pastor at New Generation Church.
I'm Graham Pollock. I'm one of the elders of the church, and I've met a couple of you before. So I've put a PowerPoint which I've entitled "Poisonous Trees Win Over People, Community and Accessibility." Now, I understand you have this on your iPads, is correct? Okay. So this relates specifically to the cycleway area between Ilam Road and Clyde Road. And we are told that the council's made a decision, and therefore there's no way how are we changing the slides?
Call out to Aidan, and he'll be.
Or I've got a presenter remote if you would like it.
Probably faster to see it.
Okay, so I'm on the 3rd slide, okay? And I come to the point where the 4th slide, if you never change your mind, why have one, which was Edward de Bono, whom you may know, and Bashir, who said, if you can't change your mind, then you're not using it. And so my question is, while we've been told that the decision is made, it's what I see this as is significantly problematic, because I would like to ask you as a committee, have you never made a decision in your life that you haven't changed? As a committee, have you ever made a decision and then never changed? We all do that. And when there are better options, you need to actually look at doing that. And while I know, Bridget and I have had the discussion, the decision's made, it's not going to change, I think there is a need for a review of that. And I simply say the next slide is there is no right way to do the wrong thing. And that's what we're confronting at the moment. There is a process going whereby the wrong thing is being done and people are just saying, we can't change. So I want to point out the church has never opposed the cycleway. What we have expressed a concern about is the design that is being used that takes away 192 car parks, which then sets out to isolate a community and isolate a facility and reduce totally accessibility. And believe it or not, even if you are in the climate world, electric cars and hybrids still need to park somewhere. So what we have here is a fixed mindset, single loop thinking, as opposed to a growth mindset, double loop thinking that Peter Singer at MIT would talk about regarding this part of the cycleway. The present situation is that the cycleway is creating difficulties for accessibility. It is beginning to isolate a community facility from its community because elderly, and particularly, how do you carry your sewing machine to a community event when you can't park anywhere near it? How do young families with prams and buggies and that operate? So the question that really comes is, why do that? And there is a better option. We got dangerously close 2 weeks ago to breaching our health and safety when we had a funeral with 150 plus people there. Once that parking goes, people will no longer then be able to easily access that facility. And so what we're trying to do is actually isolate it, whether it's just weekly services gatherings, whether it's funerals, whether it's community events, the community fun days, food festivals, friendship clubs, cafes, the community lunches. And yet we've got something that's delivering something to the community. So for example, just so you're aware, New Generation Church has 2 properties, 2 houses, that one next door, one diagonally across the road, that are currently emergency social housing. So we are trying to deliver for a community while the people who should be looking after the community are trying to isolate and create inaccessibility. So I don't need to go with the next slide, I've just said it. It's the council's aim to close the church by preventing people reasonable access. And I come to the very next slide, which is slide 10, and just to show you that on the 10th of June, the day that the council came and spoke to the church, I looked at and did a proposal that around how you could use the 20 metres of space that you have and still put in a cycleway. But that never got, even though what the council came up with, which was the option B, and which you as a community board supported, didn't actually get through. But the proposal that we put didn't even get to the community because council manipulated it to a totally different form of suggestion. What really concerned me, and it's going to go on record, so that's okay, is that both council staff and another councillor has said the fault of this is that no one from this community, rep of the board or councillors, were prepared to sit on the panel. They have stated that to us quite directly, that it's our fault, the community's fault, that no one from the community was prepared to sit on that panel, and that's where the decision got made in its recommendations. So what we've got is, when you look at it in the report that the council has written, that came through, even from what's been stated by said in council, that trees seem to be the critical problem. We need to flip through a couple of these slides.
Graham, sorry, I just want to, don't mean to interrupt,
Yep.
but your time is pretty close to coming to
Yep.
5 minutes.
That's fine.
Thank you.
So what we have, and we've had an arborist go through it, and he says to us, oh, get a medical certificate. And I'm saying, is this arborist actually ignorant of science, or is he a science denier that he doesn't know what everyone knows, is that poisonous silver birches are problematic for people? So we've got an issue there. So we've got a set of options that we can talk about. And the council have come up with an idea that they will be able to, if you go to slide 16, Aidan, flick the next one, flick the next one. Right, they've come up with a concept that they can add 6 car parks. And they're working on that, and that's good. And you can see what they're suggesting in the next slide. So that's what was there. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see that they're going to make a change to the routing of they're going to recommend to council that they change a routing of the cycleway and add 6 car parks by taking out 3 trees. They actually only have to take out 2 because a car took one of them out the other night in that corner. There are 2 problem bus stops that are there that need to be looked at and reviewed, and because the markings of those are in fact very poorly marked, and you can't actually see where the bus stop should be and shouldn't be. So they're going to look at that. But the key thing is, the only way you're going to really, the next slide, deal with this is if you deal with the silver birch trees. And we know what they are as a problem. And so we have a health and safety. Now, the council talks a lot about health and safety, but when it comes to critical health and safety, they want to ignore it. And I think we need to actually be aware of that, not just the issue of the poison, but actually the shading of the cycleway, which will create flooding from the catkins onto that cycleway. And if the reports are correct, then the extended icing because of the shading of that will make that dangerous for cyclists. What the staff said to us is, down the bottom, they said to us, oh, well, if we have such problems, we'll take remedial action. Now, I want to ask, why is it that we actually have to fix what we could have done in the beginning, have to go back if there is a problem, rather than doing it right at the very beginning? There are some other, the council has, next one, Aidan, the council has actually agreed to run option B from Island Road to Truman Road and take out some trees there, which the arborist actually says are fine, but they're going to be taken out anyway. But if there's a possibility there that you could actually run that shared cycleway path from Truman through to Clyde Road, and it would solve some of the parking issue. Another option could be angle parking along the eastern side of the road. When we raised that with the council staff, they said absolutely no. If you read the next slide, they said drivers wouldn't be aware of pedestrians and cyclists coming past them as they were reversed out, to which we had to ask them, surely if you've got a cycleway and a pedestrian walkway, you're not going to have to worry about it. And they said, oh, yes, oh, okay. So we've got absolutely muddled thinking happening around some of the solutions here. And we do have diagonal parking outside Jelly Park, so why not elsewhere? Or Margaret Mahi Park, it's all the parking is angled parking. Every car park building is angled parking. If you are going to say that there's a health and safety issue and therefore we can't put in Clyde Road, you've got to change every bit of council car parking in their parking buildings, surely, or else the logic doesn't apply. And finally, there's another option could be to run the Aorangi Road from Ireland to Clyde as a one-way, and that would then mean you don't have to have a double carriageway and you could put parking in. So what is the way forward? What support for your community are you going to take here is my question, really our question, because what the actions that have been taken to date is to isolate a community facility, to do a few additional car parks, but taking out 192 car parks in the area and then saying that this can continue to function seems to me, when there is a really good option, you've got 20 metres of road you can still run. Oh, that was a fascinating bit, because when we talked about you could have a berm and do some native planting, they said, oh, if you were going to widen that, narrow the berm, you wouldn't have enough space for planting. To which I said, any landscaper worth their salt would be able to do that easily. And this is where the thinking with the council is. It's just muddled and it's problematic as far as we are concerned in this. And so I hope that here there are 6 sorts of options here, well, the 7th, and that is to revisit and actually look at doing the cycleway properly as a 2-way cycleway pedestrian with the retention of parking as we proposed, and which the council never allowed the community to actually talk about. So it's in your hands, and I'm very interested in what I know that there's an election coming up, and so it probably should be the next community board that we also talk to, but I'm very aware that on the 25th, there's a council meeting and they're going to be confirming designs for cycleway. So are they going to confirm a poor design, or are they going to be looking to how they might move forward in a proper way that provides accessibility for people?
Thank you, Graham. Thank you. Just conscious of time, we've gone well over 5 minutes, but it was great to hear the detail and the thought that you have put behind these. And I do want to say the thought that you've given around what are some options that can be looked at to mitigate some of these issues, I think is really important. But I want to open it up to see if there are any questions. And I know, James, you might have some, or Sam online, but is there anyone around the table that has any questions for this item? James, are you there?
Indeed, I am, Bridget. No questions from me. I think it was a really clear submission.
Yeah, very clear. So, oh yes, Aaron.
Yeah, are you going to come and submit to the council on the 25th?
I've asked whether can. I haven't been told whether we're allowed to or not. I've asked the council staff. I asked Matt Goldring, said that he would ask and find out.
It'd be good to see you.
Yeah, I mean, here's the duplicitous or the dichotomies that exist, because out in the Hallsville wetlands, which is council-owned land, they've ripped out whole stands of trees. For what purpose? Not actually poisonous trees, but good trees. For what purpose? To put in a car park. That's along Cashmere Road. Now, the justification they gave was actually that those trees were under power lines, but I know that the person who wrote that response to Anne, the councillor at Horswell, who sent it on to me, that they had clearly not actually visited the site, because there were the power lines, the ditch that's there, and the trees on the other side. They were not under the power lines. But here we have an environmental part of the council turning around and saying to me, but Graham, we're taking out all of these trees, but we're going to plant natives, and it's going to be a wonderful environment in 20 years. But no, you can't have a wonderful environment in Brimwa. You've got to have poisonous trees. And so here just seems to be, again, you know, what is the logical thinking that's going on in council. I'm sorry, I'm not really wanting to attack individual employees or anything around this. I'm just saying there is huge woolly thinking that's going on, and we need to be able to look at it and take a step back and revisit in a constructive way to enable the community to benefit rather than poisonous trees.
And no, and you've made that very clear in the presentation. I am trying to have
Yes.
a public from our first, but before you leave the table, I do want to say that we value what New Generation Church does for this community. We really do. And from here, we will hear. We've got the options that you've given us. We aren't in a position to make any decisions today, but we will see what we can do where we can mitigate some of the concerns that you have. So you're in touch with Aidan, so maybe it's a matter of just listing what those are and seeing where the board can assess that. Thank you so much for coming in today. It's really great for our board to see your faces and to, yeah, so thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you so much. Moving on to the next public forum, we have Clive Smith from the Northwood Residents Association. Hi, I'm conscious we've given a bit more time to the other public forum. Normally it's 5 minutes, including questions, but look, we'll give you some leeway and considering that a bit of time is given to the other.
Thanks. Thank you, Bridget, for your time. I'm just going to go for it, Aidan. Thank you very much. It's really cool. Northwood residents serving the community of Northwood. We've been up and going for a long time. We know quite a few of you already in terms of it. One of the reasons why I'm here today is to talk to you about some of the issues that we've got at the moment as a community. And to say that this was a year of challenges is a pretty it's a pretty damning statement in terms of a number of things, but let's have a look at them. So if we go through, Aidan, so you can see it, really we're looking at infrastructure. The idea is that we've got particular areas and concerns around, for instance, the infrastructure around the place. We've got some issues around the maintenance of certain things, some pretty basic things. And the cause of all of those things that it has essentially on the amenity for our people. Let's start. Let's have a look at it. So the first is the intersection. I would say that, if you talk to people about the intersection, which is between the main North Road, you can see the Northwood Boulevard on the left-hand side, you can see Radcliffe Road on the right-hand side. Change landscape. Why? Because primarily the piece of land on the bottom right-hand corner of that diagram is Ryman's. Ryman's have come through and said, look, there's a new community going in here, and therefore we need some changes done to this particular intersection. Northwood residents, as Aaron knows, has been concerned about the safety aspect of this for a long time. And we have worked with NZTA. Just click on the things, please, Aidan, thank you. We've clicked on NZTA. We've talked to them at length about certain aspects of it. Put it simply, if you look right across that diagram, you can see that there is actually a lack of alignment. Radcliffe Road and Northwood Boulevard do not align. There is an issue around that in terms of safety, etc. Now, I know for a fact that Ryman have talked to City Council, next bit, in terms of that. And I think there's been a bit of a problem around the fact that maybe Highway 74 is in the process of being handed over, as we know, effectively from NZTA to the local board. I don't think this should muddy the water. The issue around this, and Jason, I thank you very much for the input that you've put around this, because you've obviously tried to get through the myriad of stuff around this, and I appreciate your time. So thank you so much for what you've done in terms of this. But we set out to, I say we as a Northwood Residents Association, set out to find out if we could actually make improvements to this situation as it happened. So we contacted our community and said, look, we're going to actually talk to Ryman. directly around the situation to try and get an understanding of what they needed as far as their group is concerned. Because at the bottom line of all of this, they actually are talking about it from the viewpoint of their community only. There was no discussion outside of that corner on the bottom right-hand corner of that diagram. That's poor. That's hugely poor. Disappointing to the extent where Northwood Residents Association got out and said, look, we're going to talk to Ryman. What are your major concerns about talking to Ryman? Guess what they said? They said, it's the intersection. They are worried about the intersection. Can we improve it? Can we do something with it? What time frame do we have around that, folks? I don't know. But all I'm doing is actually saying, let's please get a better communication around this sort of stuff and involve local community at the time when we need to. And that should have been early on. NZTA have got letters of ours from way back. CCC have got letters from us from way back. But nobody came to this rest of that community and said, we're about to make some changes to this. What's the story? Can we have some input? Look, treat residents' associations that work as gold, folks, because they're disappearing. Belfast no longer has a residents' association. Why? It's folded. And maybe it's folded because it doesn't quite have the cooperation level that it needs or the credence that it needs in terms of people saying, we're doing a damn fine job, but we actually need support from the people who can make some differences. And that's a really, really big deal. It's a big message, and I want that to be coming through to you strong and clear. Let's move on. The roundabout floods. The roundabout in terms of this area is a focal point in terms of accessibility to Northwood from Main North Road and also to New World if you happen to do some grocery shopping. You should not require to have a four-wheel drive to do your shopping. On the maps for Three Waters, you can see the Three Waters network map, so asset map across over in there. This thing floods so regularly now that it's laughable. 4 times in the last 2 years, started in 2013, interestingly enough, a couple of years after the earthquakes. Maybe it's related, maybe it isn't. Has there been some form of test to look at that in terms of these situations? See 2 black circles over there? They're drains that were blocked. No maintenance. If you don't maintain drains, they will block. It's not rocket science. So those green things that you've got over there are the output of the water frames, basically for the stormwater. I really hope that Three Waters becomes Two Waters. I really hope that the City Council, you guys as well, look after our stormwater. That means looking after those green drains. That means looking after effectively something which is pretty damn straightforward. 50-year maps will indicate that 50-year floods will put water on that every 50 years. Either it's climate change or we've got an issue in regard to this situation. We would really like somebody to have a look at it. Now, we've tried talking to people and these things just seem to fall away. They don't go anywhere, and we need to do something about that. I've come here today as somebody who is pleading for better communication and better cooperation so that we can move forward. Next. The arch. Yeah, the archway, the arch. This is actually a piece of concrete which actually defines the Northwest Arch. Canterbury Northwest Arch. It's a piece of culture. I think the City Council looks upon it as a liability. They'd like it to go away. Maybe they would like to even bulldoze it. The fact is that it's dirty. It's been up there for 22 years. It has not had any maintenance done on it. It doesn't have a maintenance program. If you decide that this is actually something that you don't want, then please remove it. Please remove it. But if we're proud enough to say that this is part of our area, we should look after it. So discussions that I've had is, oh, it's just going to be so expensive. It's really expensive. Yes, of course it is. And it's expensive primarily because it's got to this stage. A little bit at a time would have actually done a great sorts of things. So I got a quote from somebody in the City Council to say that this would cost us probably in the vicinity of $30,000. So I got on the phone, I talked to somebody who, the $30,000 just means go away, Clive. That's what it says. It's nothing to do with really how much it is. Because a private enterprise person who has got safety aspects associated with what they do said that they would probably do that for $1,600. What is it that I'm getting here around this? Please go away. Please don't worry about this kind of stuff for us because we're not interested in it. Next, please. Berms and drains, again, cleared up. No maintenance program whatsoever. Keep going. That was the stuff after the last washout. And thankfully, when we asked the City Council to clean up that road, they did it. That's a plus. We thank you for that. Next. Just go through the list on that, please, Aidan. You'll just get a bit of a sense around it. What we're really trying to do is to actually say, this is what we really need. The first two are about effectively the drainage and the intersection. We really need a plan around this. We would like this board and the following board to come up with plans. We would like them to understand and us to talk about this situation in the context of the community. And we would really like better communication around that situation. We would like community boards to be more centric around effectively what communities do and what they want. The only way that you can do that is to have conversations. Please carry on. What we will do is that we will work with you. We will work with this. We are absolutely there to be of service. And I think this is a misunderstood situation, and it disappoints me. So we'll do all of that. Honestly, we would, really, and probably a little bit more. Keep going. And the final part, if you look at that graphic on the right-hand side, is that there is a missing N and there is a missing W in the Northwood. So we've got a piece of concrete there in that case. It got hacksawed about 5-6 months ago. And we have actually said, could we please fix it? Because it's terrible. It's terrible. This is a situation that is worse than graffiti. So ask the council, what did you do? Okay, well, we'll come and have a look at it. Yes, great. Come to have a look at it. Okay, what do you need? Or a quote would be good, right? Here's the quotes. What have we heard? Nothing. Nothing. We need to have people that we can trust to cooperate with us. That's all that we can do. Please help. Thank you.
Very much, Clive. And we are over time, but that was a very compelling presentation, and you have very clearly set out what what your wants are and what you will do to help in that process. So I really commend you on an incredibly effective presentation, and I think the message is really loud and clear and received. So yeah, so Mary Ann just said that there are some things that we can definitely follow up on, and I guess from there it would be just keeping in contact with Aidan. Would it be Mary Ann, Aidan will follow up with you on how we can fast track some of that.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to end and don't give you an end of the day. Yeah, an end of the day. Yeah. But thank you so much, Clive. Thank you. No one else is, you're not needed to stay for the rest of the presentation or for the rest of the meeting, sorry. But thank you so much for your time, Clive. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And thank you to the outgoing board, by the way. It's been cool.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Moving on to item number 5. This is deputations by appointment. So we have one that is, I believe we have James Glubb on the line. James, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. All
Perfect.
right.
Perfect. Now, first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to see if I can share my screen with you, if that's okay.
Yeah, that should be fine.
To desktop. Won't be a second. Okay. Technology, it's fantastic.
No worries, James.
Hang on. Just see if I can get it to. Share that.
Would you excuse us, please? Thank you.
James?
Yeah.
An alternative is, Aidan could share his screen with your presentation on it.
Perfect. That's great.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you see?
That's probably easier.
Screen?
Won't be able to get though.
Oh, okay, sorry, hold on. Can you see that now?
I can. That's perfect. Thank you.
No worries. All right, we're in your hands.
Well, a very good afternoon, everybody. My name is James Glubb, and I'm here today to speak on behalf of the residents of Brenchley Avenue, who are adversely affected by the flooding of our street and our properties. And firstly, just an apology for not being there in person. Having 2 preschool-age children, I've been struck down with one of the many bugs that's floating around, so I won't spread it with you. I'll just stay at home. Brenchley Avenue is a wholly residential street in Strong that runs between Urunga Avenue and Watford Street. In anything more than moderate rain, the avenue floods, and in heavy rain events, properties, especially on the southern side of the street, are inundated. Now, it'd be easy to think that the motion put forward by Councillor Goff was just a reaction to the extremely wet July that we have just experienced. However, this is not a new problem. There's been evidence that flooding has occurred since at least the 1970s and probably for a significant period before that. Aidan, there we go, perfect, thank you. That's a view of Brenchley Avenue taken in about 1978, and you can see the flooding at that point then. After an event in 2017, council officers undertook to look at some of the reasons causing the flooding to occur. Issues such as silted pipes and blocked and silted culverts were identified. However, despite these issues being resolved, further floods have occurred in March 2020, December 2021, February 2022, and then 3 times last month. After the February 22 events, the council undertook a more thorough operational investigation. The scope of the flooding was quantified for the events up to February 2022. Aidan, the next slide would be great. There it is. So you can see there the various flood events and the rainfall totals. The report also stated that council's level of service requires stormwater runoff to be conveyed within the stormwater network for events up to and including an ARI of 5 years. ARI refers to the average recurrence interval, basically how often a rainfall of that magnitude will occur. So as we can see there, it is clear that even relatively minor rainfall events, that the council's own level of service requirements are not being met. We go to the next slide, thanks, Aidan. You can see it evidenced here in March 2020 with an ARI of just 2 years. This investigation also outlined several operational measures that needed to be taken. As of mid-July, these had not been fully completed. Next slide, thanks, Aidan. In December of last year, 3 properties were inundated when water from the flooded street flowed into their driveways. All 3 had some level of subfloor flooding. 2 had garages flooded, and the 3rd came within 5 centimetres of suffering the same fate. Next slide, thanks, Aidan. So you can see there, that's one of the properties with water that's flowed from the street into the driveway, inundating the section. Next slide, thanks, Aidan. In February 2022, the same occurred. At its peak of this event, water in the street was well over knee height. Again, the critical ARI was for less than a 5-year event at just 4 years. The flooding risk is exacerbated by the local topography. Brenchley Ave sits lower than the surrounding area. In the next series of photos taken during the 3rd of the flooding events last month, you can see how the street fills with water. Thanks, Aidan. Water flows from the gutters on Watford Street, which sits higher than Brenchley Avenue. This initially fills the eastern end of the street. At times, this is also made worse by water flowing out of the stormwater system. Once the street fills completely, next slide, thanks, Aidan. Water has only one place to go, and that is into properties, especially on the southern side of the street. And the next slide will show you how this flooding progresses. The current stormwater infrastructure is clearly grossly insufficient to deal with the drainage requirements. And we should get a final idea of it on the next slide. Thanks, Aidan. In one of the July events, 3 properties suffered flooding, including one that had a subfloor flooding over 30 centimetres in depth. Next slide, thanks, Aidan. You can see it there. There is a cardboard tube just to measure the depth, and it's just over 30 centimetres with the tape measure there. The flooding occurs relatively quickly, so much so that it has been necessary for us to park cars and use our own cones to close the street and stop cars pushing water further up the driveways. We've been informed by council staff that they have reached the limit of any operational interventions and that a capital project is needed to rectify the flooding issue. They also flippantly informed us last week that because they had improved the flow of water through the culverts, the flood risk had been increased downstream of Brenchley Avenue. This was accompanied with a photo of another ratepayer's flooded property, we can only assume so that we could all feel as part of a team. Investigations into and implementation of a capital work scheme is well overdue. The current strategy of watching the weather forecast, parking cars across the street and hoping for the best is no longer satisfactory. Because of these reasons, the affected residents of Brenchley Avenue wholeheartedly support Councillor Goff's notice of motion and ask that the committee give it its full support. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, James. I'll just pause to see if there are any questions for James. No, I think the images speak loud and clear, obviously. Yeah. James, we're coming to that notice in motion for item 7. So if you just want to stay on the line when we get there, but thank you very much for your presentation. We really appreciate the time you've taken to put to explain these issues. Thank you so much.
Perfect, and thank you for the committee's time. We really appreciate it.
So moving on to item number 6, presentation of petitions, which I believe there are none. So that brings us to item 7, which is the notice of motion for Benchley Avenue. And we have Councillor James Goff to speak to this. James, the floor is yours.
I probably don't need to say too much more, given in light of James's excellent deputation there. So I think it speaks volumes. It's pretty straightforward. So you can take the notice of motion as read. I think it just is worth noting that this isn't sort of standard flooding, or even to say that it's bad flooding, I think would be a gross understatement. It's absolutely terrible, and I think this is the sort of basic types of council maintenance that we just need to get right, because this really impacts people's lives negatively, and it's terrible in Benchley Ave. So you can see the resolutions there, but I really want us as a board to get behind this, show support for the Benchley Ave residents, ensure that the infrastructure to mitigate the flooding is up to scratch, and let's just give it everything we can to get this sorted as soon as practically possible. So I would ask that you all support this, please.
Thank you, James. Any questions for James? No. Do we have a mover for this item? Sorry, James is a mover. Do we need a seconder? Thank you, David. All right. All those in favour say aye. 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 Any against? No. Carried. Great. Fantastic. All right, James, if you're still with us, then you would have just heard what we did with item 7 there. You're more than welcome to hop offline, but that motion has been carried. So thank you.
Thank you all. We really appreciate your time. It's been wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you, James. Moving on to item number 8, proposed road names. So we have Paul, I believe. Is Paul with us?
Yeah, I am. Thank you. Yeah, it looks to be a relatively simple report tonight for a road naming proposal on a relatively small private laneway with around I think eight allotments. So yeah, private laneway, and the preferred name that's been put forward in my report is Rusbatch Lane, and that reflects the land ownership that stems back to the 1950s, and a contractor who operated from the site, Rusbatch Bros. There's a couple of alternative names put forward as well, but yeah, I think Rusbatch Lane is quite a good name for the laneway.
Thank you. Well, David is happy to move, and I saw Linda's hand shoot up for being the seconder. So all those in favour say aye. 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 Any against? No. Carried. Great. Thank you so much, Paul, for your work on this.
Thank you. Cheers.
Moving on to item number 9, Murin School, and we have Georgia. Georgia, would you like to come to the table? And please feel free to take us through the report, and then we'll see if there are any questions afterwards. Sure.
So this came from a request from the school, from Murin School, to improve parking congestion outside Brookbeg Crescent and Murin Street. So it's kind of one of those reports that kept on growing as we went through it. So we've got the P3 restrictions, P120 restrictions, no stopping restrictions, and an authorised vehicles only restriction. Yeah. So if there were any questions, then yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Georgia. I will see if there are. Shrich.
Yeah, so I absolutely understand and support the P3 restrictions near the school and on the Brookbeg Crescent, but coming closer to the mall, which is unrestricted parking right now, and I know that a lot of people who work in the mall, they cannot park inside, so they use that both on Brookbeg as well as Murin. Personally, I don't see why we need to change it just now. because it actually directly does not impact the school. It impacts the people working in the mall. So
Yeah, so on Brookby Crescent, we're proposing the P120s to remove, I guess, the commuter parking, just to clear it up a little bit more in the peak school times. So these parks, it encourages a high turnover, and parents will be able to park here as well. Yeah.
that's too far from the school anyway. And if we are managing with the P3 in front of the school and at Brookby, we should leave the other car parks for general community use.
Yeah, I mean, that is an option, but yeah, the mall was happy making them P120 and the school was in support of it as well. So, yeah.
Ashley here. I'm just community travel advisor. Sorry, I'm online because I'm actually away in Wellington at the moment at a road safety conference. But the conversations with the school and the mall is that a lot of parents park in the mall's car parking instead of out on the road. However, because of more workers parking on the road, it's creating a space where parents are kind of forced to use the mall car parking, and the mall wants to make that more for their, I guess, shoppers, which a lot of parents are. But that's, I guess, why on Brookby Crescent we're looking at those P120s, so parents have the chance to park and walk into the classroom if they need to, whereas right now if they want to do that, they're having to park in the mall's car parking and taking away that shopping car parking. So it's kind of a win-win for them all, because they'll actually have car parks for their kind of shoppers to be able to park in.
I'm Lisa, I'm the principal of Merin School. Am I allowed to speak? Or,
yes, well, normally, I guess the question would be, have you had an opportunity to pass any feedback on about this before the meeting? Yes. Oh, cool. Okay.
that's in that report.
Okay, I suppose, I mean, yeah. Yes, yeah, okay, sure thing, yeah.
Yeah, kia ora koutou, Lisa Dillon-Roberts, I'm Te Moaki, principal of Merin School. It isn't really about parking, it's about the safety of the children. So what we have on Brookby Crescent is we have a laneway where children enter and exit, and we have 2 parking spaces where parents can pull in safely. So because all of that parking is day parking for our staff as well, they'll be inconvenienced, as will the mall staff. Parents are pulling in, double parking. There's absolutely nowhere for them to park safely. So by removing the day parking and creating more, shorter term parking and park 3 minutes, we're creating some more safe places for parents to pull in and let their children out and have their children. But the issue is, I think that there's a bigger issue, and I am going to write because we had a child hit by a car on Thursday. Yes. There's a massive issue around Merin Street and Withels Road. It's a large retail complex right next door to a primary school, which has grown from 300 students to 500. It has no on-site parking for staff. We have an $8 million build going on at the moment. So we have workers, we have parents, we have staff, we have retail staff. It is pretty much a bit of an accident waiting to happen, as Thursday illustrated. We also don't have any traffic lights there. That's a roundabout, and I wonder if the volume of traffic now can actually cope with a roundabout where you're navigating a roundabout at the same time you're trying to stop for children because there's nowhere safely for them to cross, no pedestrian crossing, no traffic lights. So that's another part of the equation. But this is kind of a no-brainer really for us. I mean, I'm out there most days. I see the behaviour on Brookby Crescent. I see it on Merin Street. We have a very limited amount of spaces for people to pull in that service, 380 families.
Was that Lisa?
Yes.
Thank you, Lisa.
That's okay.
No, that clarifies things.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions for Georgia or Lisa? Yes, Mike.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm a regular in your area as well. I lived in Brookby Crescent before it was a supermarket. So.
I think I know you from the Avonhead Cemetery. We do some.
Oh, he's not there yet.
Yeah.
Well done. I should say the celebration or the memorial
Yeah, that's right.
this year.
Yeah, I've got a granddaughter coming to your school next year, so hopefully. Just a question to the staff. The P120s on Brookby, can they not be P3s?
So we proposed P3s to begin with and consulted with the mall at that stage too. And the mall weren't in favour of it. And we kind of decided that so usually P3s are the parents, just drop off there and the kids walk into school by themselves. So if they were dropping off there, they were going to have to cross the entrance to the mall, which we decided that we didn't really want to do. So we ended up extending it further down.
The reason I asked that is because I'm a regular on there most days. I don't see shoppers parking there. I see staff parking there well before. So that's what I'm saying. If you can do P3 on Merrin to get the kids in and out safely, which I'm all in favour of, why can't we do the same exactly here? I know this is the mall, but the mall obviously needs to realise that that car park is absolutely chocker at 10 to 3. And it's not people in the mall, it's the people picking up their kids. The same as the other little mall next with the black and white is.
Yes, yeah.
That is also, you cannot get a car park there at 10 to 3.
No.
So it's the same thing. It's it's a chicken and hen really for me. I mean, that's why I'm saying make it easier for P3, which I prefer. Because I mean, those people that are parking there now are there about 5 in the morning. They're the stackers and the people that are bringing stock in. So they need somewhere safer to park than parking wherever. Because I mean, if you look down Merrin Street now, on the other side of the roundabout, and I agree with you on that roundabout, it actually needs hatchings and crossings so kids can actually cross safely. But that's where all the people are parking now is towards Hawthornden Road end. So I mean, all we're going to do is push those 5 people somewhere else. And it's what, we can't have everything we want. If we had everything, we'd have flyovers for kids to get into school.
Yeah.
So thanks for explaining. And P3 absolutely support, no issue. It's the removal of the existing staff car parking. So the mall won't care and they are not school kids, but there are community people who need to park somewhere. And my fear is by making these P120, we are just moving the problem to perhaps With Hills Road and making it even more dangerous. So I would totally support P3s, as you explained, and leave the others untouched.
Yes, question for Lisa. So you mentioned changing the roundabout to traffic lights. Does that, do you think that would increase the number of kids that would walk and bike to school?
Hopefully, yes. Yes, I do. It's quite a concern. And since Thursday, it's like a sort of a vocal bomb's gone off in our community. It's really been a catalyst for, discussion. So, the community are aware that we were already working on this, and we're already, there is a submission or a proposed plan in with engineers at the moment. Is that right, Georgia?
Yeah. So
for some work to be done on both of the roundabouts and the layout, Merrin Street, Avonhead and Withels. Yes. Yeah.
Any other questions around the table?
So just one for you, Chair, is that from this today, going into next year's board priorities, that intersection, I think, should jump into the mix, at least the conversation to get started. And do we, as a board, then agree in the coming months that, that's in our priority list for, everyone knows I love myself a good set of traffic lights. So if we put our hand up now, 30 years, we'll be in.
Yeah, no, that is definitely noted.
So then we'll add that, and then that'll be on our list to discuss as we go forward.
We'll get a cycleway.
Yeah, you'll get a cycleway instead.
Any other questions? Sam, James, any questions for Lisa or Georgia?
No, it's been really useful having Lisa come in. That's changed my mind, so that's useful.
Thank you for putting it and pulling out. That's great. All right.
Thank you.
We have the item in front of us. And as Georgia highlighted before, there are a few things that we will be moving, but I am putting it to the team. Is there anyone that would like to move what has been listed under item 9 for the parking and no stopping restrictions?
Yep, I'm happy to move it.
Thank you, Sam. Excellent.
I'm happy to see.
Thank you, David. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against?
Yes.
Yeah. So Mike is against. Would you like it noted?
Yes. In explanation, it's only in Brookby Crescent. The rest of it, I'm 100% in favour of.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
And same for Suresh as well. So just 2 against, but that has been carried with the majority of the board. So yes, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks, Lisa.
Oh, and Georgia, you're on to the next one as well, which is item 10. Oh, sorry.
Just before you go, Madam Principal, how's the young person from the accident?
Oh, yes, she's got a very badly damaged face, so she'll need a bit of work done to her mouth, her teeth, and she's had an operation for 2 plates in her leg. The car went over her ankle, and I mean, she did walk out. It does appear that she has been a little bit distracted, and I've rang the older couple who were involved,
right, and
they are just distraught. So, but the family are very grateful that they are, things could have been a whole lot worse. But it's Withels Road, it's a bus stop, it's a mall, it's a roundabout, it's 500 children descending upon it all. So it is a particularly trying place for safety. But no, she's a lucky girl. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you shortly.
Thank you.
So Georgia, would you like to take us through item 10?
Yeah, this one's a little bit more straightforward. We've just got some no stopping restrictions for 330 Avonhead Road, which is
Happy to move, Bridget.
Oh, yeah. All right. Oh, I saw Shrish's hand first. So that was Sam to move and then Shrish to second. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? No, carried. Great. And then moving on to thank you, Georgia.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, guys. Yes.
Well done.
Thank you so much. And moving on to item number 11 for the Burnside Park proposed new lease. So do we have Felix? Yes. Hi, Felix. Please welcome to the front of the table.
Thank you. Again, Bridget, happy to move.
All right. Are there any questions? Any questions for this particular item? No. Okay. So that was to move. And second. Item 11. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? No. Carried. Great. And then moving on to the.
Sorry, we've just got a check.
Oh, sorry.
You made a comment on that.
Right, all good. Okay, moving on to item number 11. This is for the Morley Reserve proposed new lease for the Brynwood Community Garden. And Felix is here to present this as well, but might be happy to move. So that was David to move, and that was Linda to second. Excellent. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? No, carried. Great. And then last one for you, Felix, is item number 13, which is the Burnside Park proposed new lease for the Burnside Tennis Club. Oh, it sounds like a draw. I'm going to do David to move and then Mike to second.
Photo finish.
I'm trying to beat it.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? No, carried. Great.
There you go.
Thank you, just so you know that I'm not mute.
Thank you very much for coming in today. Thank you. And moving on to item number 14 for the Fendalton-Waimairi-Harewood Strengthening Communities Fund report, which we have Marianne to take us through.
You do. Thank you, Bridget. So we had a workshop on this a couple of weeks ago. I don't think we've received any additional questions in between the workshop, so happy to take any questions that you might have.
Happy to move.
Yeah, okay.
Well, Shrish.
There was Mike to move, and then you give it to Shrish and Shrish to second. Excellent. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Carried. Great.
Thank you to the staff for.
Yes.
Yep.
A lot of
That
work
worked.
has been put into that. But Marianne, you're going to take us through item number 15 as well.
Yes, so again, we covered this at the workshop. Basically, the only difference I can only update I can give you is that at the time of doing this report, we were unconfirmed on what our carry forward budget was going to be. So basically, you've just approved your strengthening communities, which left you $59,005 in your DRF. I've had it confirmed that there is approximately 63,000 coming through as a carry forward as well. So it takes your total DRF budget up to, I think it's going to be about 120 or something like that. So once your board projects that are here today in front of you come out, your culture law, celebrate Bishop Bell, those kind of things, you're still going to have about $70,000 to $80,000 for your discretionary response for the rest of this new term coming up.
Can I ask,
You may.
how does our budget in relation to other wards left over sort of sit? Are we about sort of consistent with sort of that percentage wise?
Very similar, actually. Very similar. We do get a little bit lower budget than some of the other board areas because
You mean the lowest?
the formula that they use is based on population and deprivation. So we do tend to be a little bit lower than some of the other boards that have the higher deprivation.
So considerably low.
A bit lower. But in terms of spend, we normally do really well on spending our DRF. It's just that COVID stopped things this time around. So
just curious.
yeah, quite similar. Quite similar.
Okay. Any questions for item number 15?
The only really one that's different is the edible gardens. So you'll recall last year you suggested that maybe this year we could look at doing edible gardens. So some community boards already do, a couple community boards do edible gardens, and it's been quite successful. We, a couple of years ago, kind of put it out there into the community to see if there was much interest. We didn't get a great deal of interest, but I think now that we've developed a partnership with the Horticultural Society, who run it in partnership, well, they pretty much do it. I think through their promotion and that, it's worth a go. So we thought we'd give it a go this coming year. And do that instead of our Garden Pride. And then if it's popular, we'll continue to then rotate them and do Garden Pride one year and edible gardens the next year. In terms of staff capacity, doing them both the same year, it's just a bit tricky, really. So we thought, let's pilot it, see how we go. And yeah, if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to move item number 15.
Second.
Is that James? Sorry, Jason?
It is.
Jason's a second. Great. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Any against? No, that's carried. Okay. Item number 16, which is also Marianne.
Okay, so the Village Community Centre down on Island Road, just down by Jelly Park, this board's been supporting them ever since I started, so that's 18 years. And they are celebrating their 25th anniversary. And they've just asked for a bit of support towards putting on some activities and things for the people that come along. And I've got an invitation that I will forward out to you all for the event.
Happy to move.
Happy to move. Seconded. Linda to second. Great. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Carried. Great. And we're moving on to item number 17.
Okay, so lucky Lisa is still in Canada on holiday. She's due back next week. Looking forward to that. So she put these in before she went. So the Burnside West University Cricket Club are sending a team off to India for a cricket development tour, which is very exciting. And then we've got another young woman who is going off to Hungary for the sprint, the World Sprint Kayak Championships.
Cool.
So two very exciting. And I just wanted to also say that at the council meeting last Thursday, Bridget acknowledged two previous youth development recipients that have had some support from this board who both recently competed at the Commonwealth Games.
Right.
One of them was Taylor Bruce, who this board supported kind of at the beginning of her bowling career from Burnside Bowling Club, and she competed in the women's triples and the women's fours, and they both got bronze medals. And then another woman that you gave some funding to in February, February just gone, was to go over to compete in two tournaments to qualify for the Commonwealth Games, which she did, and she competed in judo, Hayley Mehi. So the mayor's office is going to write letters to both of those young ladies to congratulate them on the participation, which is quite nice.
And going forward, we're only going to support female athletes because they're the only ones that get there and win. It was a joke, just in case anyone's.
We're like,
You just never know.
you just never know. Okay.
The girls get the most medals. I'm just pointing it out. Our most decorated athlete is a female.
So we need to move these though, don't we? So can I move the mover for item 17? It was David. And how about James or Sam? Do you guys want to move something? Oh, I saw James' hand. Okay, great.
Thumbs up.
And there was a second by James.
I think it's a cardboard cutout.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Any against? No, carried. Great. And then moving on to item 18 for the board area report.
Right, so we had the Russley Avonhead Safety Expo on Sunday, and it was very warm while we were setting up. It was a beautiful morning, and then just as the event started, the weather turned, which meant the fire gazebo took flight and had to be taken down. They also had their kitchen there that they set on fire. They couldn't do that in that kind of weather. So a lot of the outdoor activities weren't able to take place. But inside the hall, there were some really great stalls. St. John's had the CPR dummy there, which I saw Sam learning how to have a go. And a real highlight was the kind of Q&A panel in the afternoon. Some really good questions, and I was really impressed how fire, police, St. John's, Sarah Pallett was on the panel, and neighbourhood support and community patrols. Gave a really strong theme right the way through all their answers, just about how important it is to know your neighbours and be part of your local community, and then you are the eyes and ears for people. So that was actually really worthwhile. So it was a great expo, and it was just unfortunate that the weather kind of kept a lot of people away, unfortunately, because it turned to custard. So that's Avonhead, Russley, and Natalie is pretty busy organising the Bishopdale one, which will be very similar, but it'll have its own kind of Bishopdale flavour to it. And I think there's a working party with different reps on it from the Bishopdale community. And they've got the survey out now. The community survey is out at the moment. This next bit about the rats test, it's been really interesting. We went out to Naho Whamarai and picked up a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
They had thousands of them, and so we grabbed thousands of them, and just been giving them out to community groups. And The appreciation has been amazing because, you know, if you go into the chemist, it's $20 odd to buy a pack, and or else you can order them online if you go and pick them up. And a lot of elderly people, A, don't go online, and B, couldn't go and pick them up. So to be able to give these out to community groups who know the vulnerable members of their community and they can just go and distribute them, it's been great. And like I said, we've probably given out 1,000 already boxes, and we've still got some, and we'll carry on doing that for as long as we can. Community Service Awards, just a bit of feedback there from an event that Lisa and Helen from Papanui recently ran, a car rally for young people. And then I've included the feedback that we got, the summary feedback that we got around the consultation they did on Lake Rotokohatu management plan. And I think that's coming to the next board meeting for a decision. So any questions on that? You might notice there isn't a graffiti report, and that's because our poor girl from graffiti, the graffiti team's been off with COVID, so we haven't got a report for this month. We'll have one for next month. And also attached is your board plan final monitoring report, and well done. What a great outcome.
Massive thanks to you guys for helping us do it all. Any questions from your end?
Bridget, the only thing I was going to say was it was really useful, that presentation at council last week, and a lot of our colleagues after the meeting were so impressed with what we'd achieved as a board for the term. So it was really good to be able to display that tangible stuff we've been able to do. So, you know, great work to the board, and certainly to Marianne and her team.
Yeah, well said. Any other questions, Marianne, or comments? All right, well, Travis is a mover for the board report.
So moved.
Oh, I saw Aaron's hand.
Yeah.
Aaron to move.
Thank you.
And the second, Jason. So all
Keep
those
it
in
in the
favour
panel.
say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? No, carried. Great. And moving on to item number 19, elected members information exchange. So opening the floor, is there anyone, anything anyone would like to exchange? Yes,
If I may,
Didn't we discuss something?
I saw on a Facebook forum, this young 6-year-old girl fundraising by actually doing things herself. She's fundraising for some future, a trip to Hanmer. So I was wondering whether we could even support her with a letter of appreciation that, you know, we have noted her enthusiasm and her self-drive, etc. So, you know,
What is she fundraising for?
a trip to Hanmer.
Oh, right.
6-year-old. I have never seen a 6-year-old actually doing things. And so just a gesture that, you know, that has not gone unnoticed, and just a letter of appreciation. I think that will be very pleasing to them. So just leaving it in the open.
No, I think, yeah, I mean, it's definitely great drive, great ambition. I wonder if it's something that the board needs to write a letter though. Is there any way that you could reach out to?
I have already, and I'm going to gift her, you know, something from my pocket. But I was just thinking from a board perspective, you know, even a simple letter can go miles because it's more official than Shirish Paranjpe community board member giving chocolate.
Yeah, but that's still nice.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to do that anyway.
Anything else?
I don't know. I have trouble with that because if we do it for a 6-year-old, where do we go? Do we do it for a 66-year-old? Do we do it for a 106-year-old? I get it that she's great and young and is self-drive, and we don't want to necessarily put a fire out, but we can get down a rabbit hole of where do we stop? Are we, I don't know, maybe I'm at the wrong end of the stick, but I'm cautious about where we end up.
Well, I think they don't come up that often.
There'd be a fundraising person on Give a Little every 10 minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
So where do we stop?
That soldier in the 101-year-old in England that did the COVID war, Major or Jim, whatever it was, or Tom. Yeah. And yes, Tom, I'm pretty sure his name was. And he was acknowledged all to the point where I think he actually got knighted in the end and then died. But his that being acknowledged inspires a lot of other people. So I think it's not a bad thing. And in fact, if I know the next mayor, that sort of stuff would be great for a letter from the mayor's office, because the kid will then put that on their wall for the rest of their life. I think a 6-year-old doing something, because obviously their family can't afford to just go to Hamner, so she's fundraising, and that's cool. So, and it wouldn't come up if we start getting a list of them coming through, we'll knock it on the head. But for the odd one to pop up now and then, I think if someone of any age does something inspirational, then we should celebrate it.
Can we just get some more information about what she's exactly is?
I can, and this was just a forum open chat. I set no expectation that it must be done, but I also think that even if there is a big list, we can't solve the whole world's problem. That should not stop us from recognizing one. There may be 99 others, but let's not stop from recognizing one. I'm happy to get more. I'm meeting them anyway. I have their street address, her name, her mom's name, all of that.
And that might be adequate, depending on what it is that she's fundraising for.
Just because it's an election season, I don't want it to appear I'm doing it to get a vote. And therefore, a board letterhead is neutral. It's not Shirish, the community board member, who is also a candidate who is doing it. That's the difference.
All right. Any other elected members of Nation Exchange? No. All right. I will close the meeting and we did it. Sorry. I will close the meeting at 5:53 p.m.
Oh, no. Okay, well done.
Thank you. Cool.
It was a marathon.
Thanks, Sam and James. I'm going to cut you off now.
Thank you. See you later.
I think we're still live.
Take my token mask off.